Hello, everybody. We're going to kick this off and finish up the day. It's my pleasure to introduce my friend and peer, Zia Ahmed from Ohio State. We've had the opportunity since I've been here in the Midwest and a little before to interact a lot with NACUF's leadership positions we've both held. And we meet on a regular basis with some of our friends with the Big Ten directors, and we even invite Notre Dame to come in and mix with us a little bit here and there. And we've been able to build a relationship where we can share and explore best practices of both of our institutions. And with that, we keep getting better. So I'm hoping Zia can share some of his fabulous work with you all. And with that, Zia, it's all yours.
Well, thank you very much, Steve. Thanks, everyone, for giving me the opportunity to talk for a few minutes today. I have a lot to share, and I have a feeling that a lot of the stuff that I'm going to share today that you have already heard throughout the day. So some of this stuff items going to be repeat, and hopefully through a different lens. And also, I will try to give you a little bit of a perspective of college university dining as well, especially for those of you who are not in the college university dining field, but you interact with us regularly. You probably have a little bit different level of appreciation once you get the historic perspective of what we do and how we evolved over time. But before I get started, I really want to talk a little bit about my personal connection to the food system, right? Every single one of us in this room has a personal connection to the food system. And our food systems are very complex and grew over time, thousands of years, similar to our solar system. The big difference is that we have, as individuals, a lot more influence in our food system than we do in our solar system. But they have grown over time and evolved over time. So my personal context is I couldn't find a picture younger than this, that I was born in a small country, Bangladesh, named Bangladesh. It's a bordering country in Southeast Asia and Indian subcontinent between India and Myanmar. And my parents, especially my mom, would tell me stories that right after I was born, when I was a very young boy, the country was recovering from a famine. And I went to bed crying many nights because I didn't have enough food to eat. My mother struggled with food insecurity too. And my dad was not in the country at that time because he was studying actually in the U.S. And so that was my first introduction to the food system. And oftentimes, they will have to wait in line. My family members have to wait in line. And sometimes they will have to wait in multiple lines to get food, because if you wait in one line and you wait long enough that you may run out of the food, the people who are distributing food, you may run out. So you have to divide and conquer. So I'm sure, just like me, many of you have a connection with the food system similar to me. So, but I don't remember any of it because I was way too young. If I remember, any of that, then I would be doing something else right now. So, But my second introduction to the food system came when I first came to the U.S. to go to college. So I was a very poor student, an immigrant student, and I ate spaghetti for the most part, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, because I didn't have enough food to buy anything else. And don't ask me why I didn't find ramen, but spaghetti was what I found in the grocery store to be the cheapest food. That's what I ate. So over time, as I grew a little bit more confidence, had a little bit more money, I added scrambled eggs to it to add some proteins, a little bit more flavor, different flavor profile, texture. Then after that, I add a little bit more ketchup to it. I know to some people it's really gross, but it worked for me, and I'm still here, right? So, again, going back to it, just like my story, every single one of you in this room have a story. Story with your connection, your individual personalized connection with the food system. And that was my connection with the food system. And I'm a fortunate one, right? I'm the lucky one. You have no idea what type of miracle it is that I get to stand on this podium and talk to you today from the background that I came from. There are millions of other people who are nowhere near as lucky as I am. So when I was telling the story to my son, he said, "Dad, are you going to start this, Keynote thing with a sad story?" I'm like, "No, it's not a sad story. It's a success story. Sad stories, the people, they're not here to tell their story, right?" So that's why the food system is very near and dear to every single one of us and everybody in the world. So going back to the food system, as I said, has developed over time for thousands and thousands of years. So I don't know how many of you still use this wired, earbuds, right? Whenever my little wireless Bluetooth one runs out of battery, I still use this. And sometimes what happens is I'm in a hurry getting off the plane. I put it in my pocket real quickly. And next time I try to use it, I get this tangled up mess, right? It takes a little bit of effort and a little bit of frustration to untangle all of that. So then sometimes when you're putting the holiday lights away, right? If you're not taking the time to put it away, neatly, and next year you try to put the holiday lights up again, you get a tangled up mess. And it probably takes a little bit more effort than the earbuds and more time and energy to untangle all of that. And sometimes maybe a little bit more help from other people too. Have you seen anything like this before? If those of you who travel in South Central American countries or in Asian countries like I do, this is a very common practice in those countries. And that's a tangled up electrical mess. So if you want to ask somebody, an electrician, to go ahead and untangle that, it's going to take a lot more effort than the holiday lights or my earbuds. And it has a lot in stake. There are people who may lose electricity for days, people may get injured, and including death, right? So you need a lot more effort, a lot more time, a lot more energy to untangle that, a lot more coordination. This is a mega wicked problem of our food system that has evolved and tangled over thousands of years, from the time that we were hunter-gatherer till the time that we are today. So for us to think that somehow we're going to solve growing problem in the food system, we're going to solve transportation problem in the food system, we're going to solve aggregation problem in the food system, retransportation to a distributor, to a purchaser, to a food service producer, to a service, to nutrition, to food as wellness, and to food waste overnight, it's a ridiculous idea. It's not only not going to happen overnight, it will take years and years for us to solve this problem. And it's going to require a lot more coordination than the electrical problem that I showed you. It's going to require a lot more effort and a lot more time to do that. So in order to do that, first, we have to expose the food system, right? We have to expose the food system so we understand the problem carefully. I'm a Lean Six Sigma guy. I was trained in Six Sigma and also certified in Lean Mastery. And in Six Sigma, we call it define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. So in Lean philosophy, what the philosophy is saying that if you're not defining the problem, you're going to have a much harder time solving the problem. So part of the defining the problem in food system is exposing the problem. Let's talk about food waste, since I'm connected with that, food insecurity. So some data will show you that Americans are wasting 40% of their food, right? So let's go ahead and buy 100% of our food from local and sustainable sources and keep wasting 40% of it. How is that going to solve our problem? Because according to the National Restaurant Association, the NRA, the other NRA, the food service industry currently this year will represent $863 billion. Do you know 40% of that represents nearly $350 billion? So that means we're telling ourselves that we are wasting $350 billion worth of food, not only food, but effort. I'm sure all of that money is not just tied to food. Effort, $350 billion worth of effort every year going to waste. Can you imagine how many people $350 billion can feed every year to people in the world? All right, let's switch topic to a little historic perspective of college university dining. So college university dining really started long time ago, but not this long ago. This is one of the first colleges. There are some arguments about that. I'm not really sure much about it, but nearly 380 some years ago, we first instituted our first college campus in the country. And during the American Revolution, there were about a dozen of them. And during that time, colleges really didn't think a lot about how to organize, feed students in an organized fashion or house students in an organized fashion, right? Then over time, about the 19th century, colleges started thinking, the off-campus housing started growing, and people were really started building kitchens, centralized kitchen in off-campus housing or living quarters where they started feeding, they started gathering and having cooking in a central way and feeding the students there. Then over time, fraternities and fraternity houses started, and then those fraternity houses started hiring cooks, and that's how most of the college students got fed, right? Then eventually, college university decided that they're going to have an organized dining. Ohio State University, our dining operation is nearly 100 years old, right? And many colleges have similar situation, or sometimes even older too. So what we found on those days, typically you have a straight line dining, you will have one meat item, one vegetable, one starch, maybe some type of fruit or salad, and then some type of dessert. You go through the line only once, and you're only allowed to come back in some cases if everybody is done eating. Typically, people ate all at the same time. There were not multiple meal periods, so on and so forth. Well, as students demanded more variety and convenience, colleges started adding more food options to the line, maybe 2 meats or 2 vegetables or more salad option or more fruit option. And they expanded their meal period. Maybe you could eat throughout the day, but it continued to evolve. And part of the thing that keep everything together is a meal plan. Different colleges have different meal plans. They're administered very differently. They're priced very differently. And they have evolved with the college, with the individual college over time as well. And the meal plans were mainly designed to keep the cost and actually production of the food under control. So then students demanded more to-go food. So those one-line, all-you-care-to-eat type of operation started offering in adjacent location to-go option with the set meals. So you'll take set meals to go, but it's still a very limited amount of to-go options that were available. Then after that, as the United States started expanding in the retail food industry and all the fast food restaurants started opening up and growing, colleges were no different. There was a demand for the students to have more food options available above and beyond their traditional dining hall operations. So colleges started building their retail location as well and started offering more variety, more a la carte option where you can go pay for individual food. And they adjusted their meal plan accordingly. Nowadays, fast forward, college and universities have evolved a lot and changed a lot. This is our full service dining operation at Sloopy's at the Ohio State University. Many college campuses have full service dining operation. They have fast casual operation. They have coffee shop operation. They have quick service operation. And not only that, not only we have grown in the type of food service operation we offer in the college campuses, in our case like 30 of them, but also that the original all-you-care-to-eat type environment dining operation, dining hall, most people call it, some people call it cafeteria, that started evolving and took more of a restaurant form and platform-based cooking, right? So within that operation, now you could have an operation that seats 1,000 people. And I think Michigan State friends are over here. Their operation probably the large one probably sits 1,200 people. And they have probably 10 to 12 cooking platforms. And they're serving homemade baked goods to Indian aloo chole, inspired aloo chole, or Thai-inspired pho bol, or churrascaria, or horchatas. So not only the operations have evolved and grown, but within the operation that college university started, those have evolved and grown and started offering a lot more variety and a lot more international cuisine. I think I went back. Yeah. So now let's take a different perspective of college university food service, how we have evolved. Even maybe 15 years ago, maybe even sooner than that, 10 years ago, many college university was focusing on creating a food item that is really craveable. A simple food item is a burger, right? Burger's been around for a long, long time. So that was the goal. Let's create a real good burger that students are really going to enjoy. Well, that's not at all the case right now. Do you have a vegetarian or vegan alternative for your burger? Do you have a gluten-free bun for your burger? Do you have a nut-free burger? Is your burger being produced in a facility where you're using nuts? Do you have soy in your burger? Do you have egg in your burger? Do you have dairy in your burger? Is your burger halal? Is your burger kosher, right? So imagine all of those individual things and all that create so many different combinations, right? I could be a student who follows halal diet and have dairy allergy. So you have to customize that burger for me, who is following halal diet, who has a dairy allergy. Another student could be kosher, who has a gluten intolerance, right? So you see the complexity, and all of those complexity play a major role when it comes to sustainable food practices, right? So that same burger is a lot more complex to produce now than it was even a few years ago. All right, now let's talk a little bit about specific to the Ohio State University. So at the Ohio State University, Our goal is to purchase 40% of our food from local and sustainable sources by year 2025. That goal was created by a large group of people assigned by the President and Provost Council of Sustainability to come up with university-wide, very aggressive and ambitious sustainability goals, and food was one of them. There are many other sustainability goals that that group came up with. But what I am mostly interested in, or actually not interested, but mostly interesting to me, is 100% transparency. And that 100% transparency goal was created by a panel of cross-functional university individuals that were assigned by the high-level leadership of the university to come up with a plan to see how we're going to reach our 40% local and sustainable goal. And the panel from day one decided, at least the panel leadership, that in order for us to get to 40% local sustainable goal, we have to make sure that we are very transparent about our food, the food that we buy. And what we mean by 100% transparency is that what we know and what we don't know about our food. I think that's the most important part, because if I go to average food service directors or any food service directors right now and say, you should have a goal to have 100% food transparent, they're going to look at me and laugh. Like, seriously, Zia, that's not happening, right? How am I going to find out all the potato chips in a nationally manufactured product that all the ingredients where they're coming from? So by what we're doing is, by saying what we know and don't know about the food, we're making it more manageable. And eventually, we truly believe that if we get to learn about what we know about our food, we may one day truly get to 100% transparency. So this cross-functional team included faculty, staff, students, student leadership also. So the chair, I was one of the chair of the committee panel. There was a faculty chair and there was a student chair. Over the last 2 years, worked very hard to submit a report to our university leadership, which leadership is reviewing the report as we speak, to create the pathway of how do we get to the 40% local and sustainable. But some of the most important work that was done in this process was to create our own definition. How do we define local? So this is we lovingly call it the Buckeye Bullseye. So this is how we define our local. So keep things simple over here. 275 miles is our definition at The Ohio State University from our campus locations to be considered local. But we're not stopping there. We also want to measure all the food that we're purchasing from Ohio and all the foods coming within 50-mile radius and all the food that we buy from North America. Of course, the sustainability definition was not as simple. So there's a lot more complexity in the sustainability. So there's a whole table and these columns, and I can talk to you more about this individually, even share the document with you, but the easy way to explain this is that you have to meet the environmental criteria, and then you have to meet one of the other criteria in order to be considered sustainability. And in lack of any better process not knowing that there was a better process at the time and still don't, we decided that we're going to have to depend on certification process in order to in order to meet our sustainability goal. And every certification process is going to go through a rigorous process. That means a panel, our proposal at least, it hasn't been approved yet. A group of people will look at every single certification process that are available around food, and they're going to review it, and the university is going to decide what certification is acceptable and what is not acceptable. And we cannot consider a food sustainable or certified sustainable unless it has been approved by that group who's deciding what's acceptable, what's not. Because there are hundreds of certification processes that are out there. So that's that. But while we're waiting for our approval process, and even before the goals that we set, the Ohio State University Dining Services have been working on local sustainable food for many, many years, at least as long as I've been there, for sure. So I'm going to tell you a couple of great stories of how we have created more sustainable buying practices and local buying practices by taking on big challenges. So this is a chicken bite that was one of our top skewed items in our operation. And for a few years, we've been buying 100% of our fresh chicken from local sources in Kidron, Ohio. It comes right outside Worcester, and typically the farmers are within 30 to 40 mile radius of the chicken processing facility, about 150 local farmers that produce the chicken. So 100% fresh chicken, of our fresh chicken comes from there. As a matter of fact, U of M, I think, buys some of the chicken from that area too. So we wanted that number one, of our top skewed item, that chicken bites that we talked about, to have more transparency. Our goal was not for this to be not to be local or sustainable. We just wanted more transparency. So we went to our national manufacturer who was making the chicken, and we asked them to give us more transparency information about where the chicken is coming from. And they pretty much in a very nice way said they're not going to do that. So, all right, so we said, fine, we're going to take on this project. So we went to this local chicken place and we say, hey, would you be able to cut the chicken to our spec? Then we found a Cleveland-based distributor and said, would you be able to take that chicken to a small town in Tiffin, Ohio, where we found a small family-owned company who has a breading facility. We went to that small family-owned company and we asked them, would you please be able to bread this chicken for us to our spec? So our chefs worked very hard over a year period of time working with students to develop the right flavor profile that our students are going to like, by the way, because it was a very popular chicken. We wanted to be very mindful that we're not taking away an item that students really enjoy and introducing a local item that they're really going to hate. That would be disastrous, right? So worked with a multiple focus groups and stuff our chefs, corporate executive chef and other chefs work with to create the flavor profile. And then it comes to Columbus, Ohio. So I shouldn't say number one, of our top skewed item, now we stopped buying it from the national manufacturer, and it also went away from our national distributor. So, and we did it not because we're trying to punish anybody. We did it because we felt like that was the right thing to do. We should be able to tell where our chicken comes from. It doesn't matter. We didn't ask to be local. We just asked for transparency information. And if somebody's not going to give us transparency information, we're going to find our way to do it so we can find our transparency information, even to a point that we'll just find our own sources to get food. I know it's easier said than done. There are other cases we also failed miserably too. I was sharing at the table that we recently tried to do the same thing with another highly skewed item. It's a breaded spicy chicken. We found out the price was double than what we can get it for in the market. Of course, we're not going to pay double the price. I mean, affordability is a major issue on campus. We cannot afford to increase our meal plan prices or food prices to double our chicken price, right? So we work on multiple projects, and sometimes, much fewer times, we're probably successful, but we don't give up. Another sustainable story is, I don't know how many of you know about Cape shark, dogfish, also known as dogfish. Anybody in the room know about dogfish or Cape shark? So it comes from Chatham area, where Cape Cod, very well known Cape Cod area. There's not much cod left over there now. And we understood over time, actually we're not the only one, some of the other colleges realized that they are currently fishing Cape shark in a sustainable fashion. And there's plenty of it available too, and most of it gets exported to foreign countries right now, mainly in Europe. I think one of the stats shows that less than 10% of it stays in the US. So over the years, few of the universities, including ourselves, tried to use Cape shark in different applications to see if we can offer that on campus to increase the use of that fish in US. So what happened was we found like using it in fish taco or fish stews, they were great, they're amazing tasting food, but that's not really what our students are going for all the time. Those are more like a innovator and early adapter students, right? So typically, what do you think 18-year-olds like when it comes to fish? Fish sandwiches, fish sticks, right? So we learned from our experience with the chicken. So we went to the same breading company that, small in Tiffin, Ohio, and we asked them, would you be able to bread this fish to our spec so we can put it in fish sandwich? And they said, sure, we'll take it on. And they did that. This time, rather than going to a regional distributor, since there were more complexity involved in it, because it's coming from Chatham, not from Ohio, we went to our national distributor and we asked them, would you be able to pick up this product? So they said, sure, we will do that. So now they are taking that product to the facility, processing facility, or the product is getting to the processing facility, and they picked it up as one of their skewed item, is a national multi-billion-dollar distributor, right? And that product is now available. It's coming to, not only coming to Ohio, but it's now Tiffin, Ohio, and getting better, but it's available to us, but it's also available to any other college universities that are doing business with that national distributor. And that national distributor has many college universities doing business with them. So here's another great story of how we can make, just by doing a little bit of a homework and a little bit of a work, it was a lot more than a little bit of a work, I'm sure, but we can truly make some significant impact in the industry. And look what happened to Tiffin, Ohio. That place was struggling economically, right? Still is in many ways. But now that small family-owned company hired more people because they have more business. And potentially, they could become a large breading company if many colleges started buying the same two products that we are selling at The Ohio State University. So I know we have about maybe 5 or 6 minutes left, but I wanted to close by saying that every single one of you sitting in this room has a significant influence in the food system. A lot more, all of us, everybody in the world has an influence in the food system because we're a consumer of food, right? We eat food from the time that we're born. But all of you sitting in this room, including myself, has more influence because we are in some type of an influencing position. And food systems problem is a mega wicked problem, and it's not going to be solved overnight. And it's going to be very frustrating at times, as frustrating as untangling your holiday lights or untangling those electrical wired mess. A lot more frustrating than that. But one time somebody asked me, then it's so overwhelming how you do it. You do it like the way you would untangle your holiday lights. You take thoughtful approach. You don't take radical approach. Radical approach is not a good way to go. You set big goals. There's nothing wrong with setting big goals, but not setting radical goals. So I hope all of you will think about your personal connection to the food system as I have thought about my personal connection to the food system. And every day is a gift. Thank you for sharing part of your gift with me. And I'll open it up for questions.
Anybody have any questions for Zia from that school down south? I'll just make a comment. I noticed your 275-mile circle maybe encloses Ann Arbor.
Maybe.
Just checking on you. Yeah.
We don't have to buy from every location, Steve, within that 275 miles.
We'll see what we can sell off to Ohio State. Yeah.
You can hear me?
Yeah.
So a quick question on your decision-making, the hierarchy of looking at those two products. Where was that velocity? Was that popularity of the items? What made you pick both I like the name Cape Shark. They've improved the name from Dogfish.
Definitely.
But also the chicken as well.
Yeah. So as you know, Eric, that one of the challenges we found over time that as we're working with local sustainable food, we often focus on, we take a shotgun approach, right? We look at many different things and we find few successes here and there. And we started getting frustrated over time. And we're like, wait, we're doing a lot of work, but we're not moving the needle. Nowhere near as much as we'd like to move the needle. So that's when we started really getting more focused on the items that would truly move the needle. And chicken is a high volume item for us, and that's why we focused on chicken. And then fish was a little bit different story. It was a more emotional story that we have this great fish, right in U.S. and most of it is getting, exported. So we thought that, hey, we solved a problem. Let's see if those people who solved the chicken problem for us can do that. That's why we picked the fish. And it's been so far very successful, hopefully more success to come in the future. But, so right now we're looking at local produce. Rather than saying that we're going to buy local produce, we're saying, what are the top skewed produce that we buy? And which one of that can we get locally? So we're really focusing on tomatoes. We buy a lot of tomatoes. So rather than saying we're going to buy some lettuce, some tomato, some herbs, some cucumbers, right? We're saying, no, let's focus on a very specific item and work on that as hard as you can. And if you're successful, that's great. If not, then move on to the next item.
Anybody else have a question?
So what's been maybe some of the biggest challenges in getting this going in your institution?
I would say definitely time and effort, right? Because it's not like we have hired people and planned to work on this type of project. So these type of projects are getting added on to the people who already had a job and their regular job. So we're adding those goals onto their job. So really finding the time and effort to work on these projects and also overcoming the frustration when they're not successful, right? You put a lot of work into it and you realize in most cases, financial reason you can't do it. So that will be the pretty typical challenge. But we're very fortunate at The Ohio State University. We have a widespread support from all the way from the administrators to students to everywhere else to continue to work on this area. And I would say time and effort. Resources.
I guess with that, we'll wrap it up. Want to take
one more question,
one
I
more
think.
question?
I was going to ask, outside of rooms like this, what have you done on campus to share the story of those wins with your diners?
Nowhere near enough as we should be, right? So,
And why then?
we really, and I'm going to be very honest with you, we're really bad at telling. I'm speaking on behalf of dining services, right? We're really bad at telling our story because we have this blue collar mentality that you do the right thing because it's the right thing to do, and you shouldn't get credit for it. You know, no one should get. I remember talking to people in dining service for a long time. No one should get a gold medal for showing up to work on time. You should be showing up to work on time, right? It's the same idea, kind of stays with us. And some colleges have done a very good job marketing, but we're not very good at marketing all the effort that we're doing. I mean, I haven't even talked about half of the stuff that we're doing. 100% of our tea comes from organic certified farm. I think one of the panelists talked about our coffee program. We will not buy coffee unless it's fully transparent. We want to trace it back to its original farmer. We're taking students down to Guatemala, to Honduras. We built raised beds, me personally with students in El Salvador, in a remote area in El Salvador where a farmer had a great quality coffee. He had all the three critical components to grow great coffee: soil condition, the weather, and elevation, soil condition, and what's the third one? Shade. Elevation, soil condition, and shade. Three key elements predictor to grow good coffee. He had that. So in testing of the coffee, we buy only 85 coffee. For those of you who know how to grade coffee, coffee is graded like similar to wine and beer in a scale. So 85 would be considered a good quality coffee. When you're getting to 88, 89 range, you're really getting to specialty coffee. And only boutique coffee shop charging a lot of money can afford that. So we set a standard that we're going to buy only 85 coffee. And so we found this farmer's coffee was less than 85, like around 82, 83. So we partnered with a roaster, Hubbard and Craven is the name of the roaster, and we said, hey, what can we do to go there to see if we can improve the quality of the coffee, then we can buy it. So we took students down there, and we found the problem was that the farmer was not processing the coffee the right way. And the coffee was getting bruised or damaged during the processing. And also, there are so many factors involved in processing good coffee. So we went ahead and we built an African drying bed. It's called African drying bed. Some people call it raised bed on farmer's patio because he was patio drying the coffee, and that was one of the top predictor, drying it the right way. And we recently received the coffee on campus, and it's graded at 85. So now that roaster made the commitment to start buying 100% of his coffee. So I can go on and telling the story about our influence in the food system. All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Zia.